We need to talk about DAC amps. See, when I get asked, what's that thing in your ear? And we get chatting about IEMs, especially with techie people, I usually get, sure, but I need a fancy headphone amp for that thing, right? And this is where I think people get a little bit confused. The concept of a DAC amp on the surface is pretty simple. The DAC part stands for digital analog conversion and essentially takes the digital signal, like USB, and converts it to an analog one that outputs via, let's say, 3.5mm or phono. And the amp part refers to the circuitry used to take the base signal and bring it right up to the level we can hear with headphones or earphones. So in this scenario, my DAC amp is taking the digital output from my phone and giving me an analog connection for my IEMs that don't have that conversion circuitry inside them or the amplification. But the question then becomes, do you need to drop $200 or $300 on a dedicated headphone amp? And the answer to that really kind of depends on what you have. Like if you're rocking some basic, small, single dynamic driver IEMs and the output on your device doesn't sound bad, then I'd honestly just stick with that. The output on my MacBook Pro, for example, even being half a decade old, is still decent. It puts out a nice, clean sound that I personally quite like. And this is my ThinkPad, which I dearly love. It's a workhorse. It's fast, it's thin, it's light, it has a great keyboard, and we recently actually found on Flat 4K that it can strangely game with no GPU, so check the link below for that. But the headphone port on this thing kind of stinks. Anything I plug into this thing sounds thin, weak, tinny, and for that reason I always carry around this little guy with me, the Kiwi's Allegro. Yes, just like the car. It gives me some volume controls, outputs 3.5mm or 4.4 balanced if I want to go fancy, and it's tiny so fits in my pocket really easily. It's about $50, so doesn't cost a fortune, but you can go even smaller than this. The Apple DAC dongle is a pretty decent thing for IEMs, as has been the Pixel one in my experience. These cost next to nothing and you can just leave them on the end of your headphones or earphones if you want to. There are plenty of reasons to spend a little more and go for something more substantial, like the iFi ZenDAC V2 or the FiiO K5 Pro, which come in at around $200. For one, if you own a bigger set of headphones like the Sennheiser HD600s, then the built-in port on your dongle DAC might not give them enough power, and so you're going to want something a bit more substantial like this. But power requirements aren't the be-all end-all. What if you have a pair of IEMs with a short cable and you want to relocate your headphone port to your desk for convenience? A headphone DAC amp is a great option for this, especially as a lot of them come with a nice big physical volume dial, which means getting just the volume you want far easier than using software controls. Or what if you have multiple sources that you want converging into one output? A DAC amp is great for that too. My FiiO accepts all sorts of inputs, and with a switch on the front I can select between them and give me one output without having to unplug and replug in all the different sources every single time. Or if you want multiple outputs from one source, a lot of DAC amps offer output to speakers through XLR or phono. An essential desktop DAC amp can pull double duty, and there are some on the market that even offer Bluetooth output if your source doesn't have that built in, which is also mega handy. Then there's the whole world of different types of amps, mainly consisting of solid state ones like I have here, or tube amps that will offer different output characteristics to the sound. And some DAC amps even have EQ settings or bass boost functions if your current set isn't giving you enough low end. There's plenty of noise online about different products and devices, but honestly if you're happy with what you have, then there's no need to upgrade. Don't listen to the hype. If your headphone output is crappy, or you want a balanced output, or you want any of the features that I mentioned here, then I'd wholeheartedly recommend a DAC amp. It's likely not something you're going to need to upgrade very quickly. These are the sorts of things you buy and then you keep them for 10 years. And since it works with practically every source, it's a great device to have around.